everybody. It's Wednesday. It's another edition of the Relationship Gumbo Podcast Live Edition. My name is Derek Jones, and I'm your host. So, what I want you to do is when you come in, share and invite this with your friends and family. We have a great topic and a great, amazing guest today. And we're going to talk about divorce, life after divorce. We're going to talk about, some of those things and the emotions that happen when you're going through, and how do you get over that, right? How do you get to a point where you're strong enough to leave, if that's the solution? So once again, I welcome you. Give me about 15 seconds to make sure that everything is going where it needs to go, and we will get right into it. So stand by.
This one for the streets that taught me lessons. They taught me about the grief and people out here stressing. They taught me how the evils wanna keep you from progressing. It's people in your circle wanna keep you from your blessing. No talking to them people when them people come with questions. This mama say no ratting, for them death is destined. Be careful of the people you invest in.
All right, we are back again. I say welcome. I appreciate you for coming out and taking the time to listen. Like I said, we have a great topic. Make sure you share and invite this with your friends and family, because even if you don't think this applies to you, it applies to someone you know. I guarantee it. So what we're going to do is, because this is a live podcast, what I'm going to do, just so you guys know how this show goes, is I'm going to pause for about 3 seconds. I'm going to start the podcast. And then when we're finished the podcast portion, I'm going to pause again, and then we can kind of speak freely and talk about questions if we need to. If you want to ask questions during, if they're pertinent to what we're talking about, we will address the questions, but we will be basically the audio is going to be extracted. So just be mindful of that. And we're going to go into it in just a second here. So once again, share and invite. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And I'm just making sure my Periscope folks are there and we good to go. All right. So here we go. And welcome to another episode of the Relationship Gumbo Podcast. My name is Derek Jones, and I am your host. I'm a life coach, an engineer, a strategist, and a mental health advocate. And today we have a super, I always say they special, but this one's extra special. We have an amazing guest, Miss LaTasha Carpenter, aka your girl Tasha. She's gonna tell you all about herself, but she's also going to tell you about her story of divorce. And I've also been divorced at one point. It was a very short marriage, but I have my own little story, but her story is amazing. I've heard it a few times because I can actually say that she is my friend. So I know her story, and I want you guys to not just hear her story, but I want you to feel it, because I know what I try to do with my shows is I try to make sure that I not just give you information, but I want you to be able to feel it so that you can identify with it. So when I choose guests, I make sure that I choose guests that are very impactful. So I'm going to let her introduce herself and who she is, and we're going to get her on here real quick. So stand by. Let me make sure that we can hear her, and we are live. So for podcast listeners, we will address questions if they come up on the live feed so that you guys can actually hear the interaction. But we're going to just get into it. So hold on 1 second. Let me get her on. All right. There she is. Can you hear me, LaTasha?
I can hear you, Derek.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. So what I want you to do is just tell people a little blurb about who you are and what you do, and then we're going to get into the storytelling part of the show.
But hey, it's your girl Tasha, known to the world as LaTasha Carpenter, but everybody calls me your girl Tasha, because when you hang with me, it's like you hanging with your girl. And my favorite word is BAM, guys, because I'm always being authentically me.
That's amazing. I've heard it probably about 3 million times, but we're gonna let you talk about how that even came to be at the end of this. So what I would like for you to do, for our audience, is to kind of, like I said, we're talking about divorce, and people sometimes don't realize the go through part of it. They know that you got married and they know something happened, and then you're divorced, and sometimes people look at it like, like, what did you do? What did he do? But they don't really look at how it felt. in like what you go through on a daily basis. And so that's kind of like what I wanted to try to focus on, because I like to skew a little. I like to give people a little bit different perspective. So if you don't mind, tell people kind of like where what I told you before the show was, I wanted you to tell them about the part, in the beginning where you thought everything was cool and you was happy and you got married, and then just go from there. And we'll jump in as needed.
Well, you see, I was this fine little tenderoni running around in Temple Hills, Maryland. So no, actually, guys, the way it all began for me is that I got out of high school. I had been working since I was like 14 years old. But when I finally started what I considered as my first career, straight out of high school, I went and started working for a local phone company. I used to say, 411, Miss Johnson, how can I help you? What city, please? And anyway, I met my ex-husband there. There was a lot of relationships. It might just be because I work for the phone company, guys, that I'm divorced, because I think it was about 8 couples that got married there and 7 couples are all divorced. So it might just be don't get married if you're at the phone company.
We won't be drinking the water there.
Exactly, So what do I say? I mean, you decided you want to get married. If you're going to get married, you want it to last, right? Well, first of all, I don't know how to talk about it from coming from that aspect anymore. I just think about it. Hindsight 2020.
Right.
There's signals that sometimes, because we just want so much to have the perfect marriage, that we ignore the signals. So for me, now that I'm looking, after being a 20-year marriage, 10 years too long, guys, for those of y'all that don't know me, 20 years, 10 years too long, it was based on what I saw growing up under a single mom who, and most of the women in my family were not married. That was just one of my aspirations. I'm going to get married. I'm going to have a 2-parent household and I'm going to be perfect. So the first time that, I thought I was having that feeling of love, of infatuation that you're going to learn about right now. Infatuation will make you do some dumb things. You see some signals, you see some things going on. For instance, what I tell people, one of the reasons why I'm not married anymore is because I married, it was a lawyer that told me I married Peter Pan and he never grew up. But I had those signals before I started, because it was always about not just his mom. He wasn't just a mom's boy. It was always about his dad too. Okay. To the point that being a Catholic man growing up in a church where his parents was very active, that he chose to change the definition of that verse that talks about when you get older, you're supposed to cling to your wife, no longer do as you did as a child, all this stuff. Oh no, you're interpreting that wrong. Everything is about his parents, to the point that he, it was just like you would see stuff that I should have been shocked that when I got married, that he would tell me, I'm not going to make my mom and dad mad at my family. I'm not going to make my family mad at me for you. I'm your wife. What the hell am I? Am I not your family, right? But right. I saw those things, but because I wanted, sometimes us functioning in dysfunction as children in environments make us want to so much be different than that environment, that we find ourselves being in that environment, if that makes any kind of sense, Derek.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. That happens more often than we would like to think. And I always call it, in a slight way, I always call it being addicted to dysfunction. Like, we don't realize that we have all of that stuff in us, and then we end up seeking out the same things and don't even realize it. And so would you say that when you got to the point of getting engaged and married, that you knew who you were getting married to? Or was it like, the thought of being married was like the most important thing, like you just needed to have that?
Well, first of all, I wasn't even asked to get married. I was one of those people that, I actually had walked away. I walked away at first, and then I found out after I walked away, about 5 or 6 weeks after I was gone, that I was pregnant. So because I was pregnant, I went back and I said, hey, I'm carrying a child. What you want to do? Okay. And when I said that, I was only looking to be back in honoring that 2-parent household thing at that time. It wasn't about getting married either. And then he came to me one day and said, we're getting married on this date at his church, which was like 6 weeks ago. Never asked me. There was not a ring or anything like that.
Wow.
But when you say, did I know, he was always peeking through before all that happened. So it became more prevalent as I began to having a child. You know, you started seeing more of what this person is. So there was some stuff that was there that I should have been like looking side eye at already. But yeah, I had it was clues.
So did you feel like when you started seeing that stuff that you could just kind of like, oh, that's just who he is. We just gonna ride this out? Or were you consistently just in the place, like even from the beginning of being married, feeling like, why did I do this?
There was things about him that I not necessarily agreed with, that I was willing to accept, because marriage is a give and take, right? You got it's a 50-50 thing. But I think that a lot of women can relate to me, and men should know, at a certain point, when you break that one camel back, it doesn't matter how much patience we had with everything else, is F everything else. Okay. Right. So, no, the thing that broke the back, to give the quick story. I mean, everything had to be over his parents' house. We had to pack up all of our presents underneath our Christmas tree and take it to his parents' house to have Christmas over there. Every holiday had to be over there. I'm talking about Columbus Day. I'm talking about Easter. Wow. Every holiday, all this stuff. You know, I eventually, we would leave and go to my mom's house in the middle of the day. And then it was this one year that his dad told him that him leaving to go with me to my family's house was a disrespect to him. And he stopped going. That upset me, right? But that wasn't the straw that broke the camel's back. Fast forwarding with a lot of other little silly things like that. For me, I'm gonna call it silly. What was the final straw was that October 20th, 2007, I lost my mother, Natlin Johnson, to breast cancer. But she was stage 4 breast cancer. When it got to the point that it was going to her brain, she started doing a lot of things that I just couldn't care for anymore, and I had to put her in hospice. So 1 week before that date, the last time I saw her at hospice, she told me, well, I went to go kiss her and she pulled away from me. And I was like, I'm not coming up here no more. I'm fed up. I'm just not doing this no more. And that night, unexpectedly, his dad passed. I'm the good wife now. I decided to go ahead and go through everything. We packed up the kids. We spent the night over his parents' house every night, and went back and forth from the funeral home to the cemetery and getting the programs and all this stuff, and buried his dad. And then the next day, I'm at his mom's house. I get my phone off the couch, and it was a message from the doctor saying that my mom had passed. So I never got to see my mom anymore. Now, is that, y'all trying to think forward, is that made me get mad at him? No. What made me mad is that we went to the hospice to make arrangements for the funeral home to pick up my mother's body. And then when we came back to the house that evening, me and my girlfriends are in the kitchen. They're trying to console me. We're talking. And this man walks in the kitchen to tell me that mom still needs me. I'm going to spend the night over there again tonight. You okay? And I said, go ahead. Ladies, don't do that. I'm going to tell you, don't do that. There's a lot of times that we feel that our companions, our partners are saying stuff that they should just know. They shouldn't ask us. So when they ask us the question and we feel opposite of the way we answer that way because I shouldn't have to, I shouldn't have to even answer it. I'm going to say yes, because that fool should know that no, he shouldn't even be asking me the question. He should be here with me because I've been with you the whole week. Your father's gone. And today my mother just left and you should be with me. Right?
Right.
But women, we have to stop doing that. Okay. And I'm gonna tell you, I'm at that point right now. My baby right now, he get every yes that's a yes and every no that a no. No yes no's and no yeses anymore coming from your girl Tasha.
Right. Right. So from that point of, you know, his father passing, your mom passing, I'm sure, I have to assume, like directly after that, things kind of probably got a little more rocky after that, I'm assuming.
Oh,
Or a lot more.
that was it. That was the beginning of the 10-year too long part.
Right.
And it was the beginning of we don't stay in this. We probably started we don't stay in the same room. I used to call him an MIB. And I'm not talking about Will Smith and Men in Black, the man in the basement. Okay. So, you know, he was definite permanent MIB. But see, even in that final straw, like I'm just going to get out of here somehow, or I wanted to get out of there, but I didn't get out of there. And I'm gonna get to that in a minute. But even in that, I was still like, praying to God, I never want, God, I need this 2-parent household. I'm not supposed to have a marriage to fail. What are people going to think? What are they going to say? Of course, all of them, oh, he laid back like you, right? He kind of laid back like you. So, of course, the outgoing, your girl Tasha, I wasn't her then, but I still had this outgoing personality. She got a name after the marriage. Mm-hmm. Oh, she the one that did something. That's just the assumption. She the one that's always out there. When she walk into the room, people got to know who she is. It's her. She broke up that marriage or whatever. All that stuff. Not that I cared what people think, but all those things was going through my head about how I'm going to deal with this. But most importantly, what went through my head was because I went straight to him from my mom's house. How do I live on my own? And how do I take care of my son and my daughter at the same time as an independent single woman? That was, my life was about to be turned up and down. And it was more so fear about that part that kept me there longer than I should have been there.
Right. So yeah, I think the last show I did, I talked about how, well, maybe a couple shows I talked about how a lot of times we stay because of what it's going to look like to everybody else that's kind of like rooting for the marriage or whatever. And then you stay even longer because of what other people might say or how your family might perceive it. And what does it look like? And are they going to think it's me? And then years go by and you like, I'm still here. So my next question is, on a daily basis, like I'm at this point, like how old are your kids? Are they like elementary? Are they?
Oh, wow. 2007 is 2020 now. One is 19 and one is 24. Do the math for me.
Yeah, I'm not doing that.
I wasn't out of it. Well, that's at that time.
So the larger question is, do you feel like part of that was I want to stay because of them? I want to make sure that they have like a stable environment, dad's still in the house, whatever?
Well, the stable environment, definitely something that was of concern. We're able to maintain. For me, it's very important to, if the children, I always tell them, if your curriculum is right, you can have all the extra curriculum you want in the world. And I believe the extra curriculum for children keep them busy and make them well-rounded and keep them out of trouble. So because both of my kids did so many things, my son played football, he played the saxophone, he played softball, marching band, all this other kind of stuff. My daughter, she played the violin, she write poetry, she ride horses, she did AAU basketball. How am I going to maintain paying for all this stuff? Going to a single income kept me there. And did I worry about some parents worry about, is it going to hurt the kids more if we leave? I don't think I really had that problem, but I tell you what, it wasn't until my daughter one day wrote a letter to me, handwritten letter, front and back on a piece of notebook paper saying, Mom, it's okay to leave.
Wow.
It's okay to leave. And I mean, that is what kind of let me start stacking my cash and let me get ready to get up out of here.
Yeah, that what I always tell people about kids is they probably understand our emotional states better than we do. And they see it. Like we think that we're shielding them from it, but they can feel the energy. They can see the moods. They know when you're happy. They know when you're hurt. And we think, oh, they're going to be all right. They're going to be all right. But they know they can feel that. And I always say, what I said in a prior podcast was, when you are living through a trauma, when you're living through dysfunction, at some point, that's the gift that you give to your kids, and you don't realize it. And then they got to be parents. So the best gift you can do when you're talking about stability is, whether you're inside the marriage and you end up fixing it, or you leave, get divorced, the best gift you can give is a happy, sane you.
Exactly.
That's what they really want.
So you go back to still trying to fix everything or praying for it to be fixed. And I went through a stage, Derek, that there was one day, again, he was Catholic, I was Baptist. I knew that my pastor was going to be teaching on couples one Sunday. He never really wanted to go to my church. I don't want to hear nobody yelling at me and all this other kind of stuff. They're fake and all this stuff or whatever. And I asked him if he wanted to go to church this particular Sunday, because I knew my pastor was doing a service on marriage and couples.
Uh-huh.
The joker said yes. Right? I'm like,
surprise.
I said, oh, shucks. I said, oh, God, you about to fix my marriage. I was like, all right. And then when I went to this service, flip side, the pastor preached from some marriages you're supposed to stay in and some marriages you're supposed to leave. And everything that I heard was, get the hell out of this marriage. Right. Everything he heard was like, see, I told you it's not too bad. See, we on the right path. We okay. He heard everything about us staying together. And I wasn't telling him how I was feeling. But what I did is, when I went up out of that marriage, I got so mad and I got so angry. I was mad. I tell everybody all the time, I'll cuss and say it's staying together. I was mad as hell at God. And it made me decide to not be around in church. I stopped going for church for like over a year, because I was so angry, because you're supposed to fix my marriage and you're telling me to still leave it. And this is not the way it's supposed to be. But that's another message that I have to people. Again, in the beginning, those signals were there. And then here in the middle of it, God's trying to give me signals. He's trying to tell me, follow my lead. And I'm like, no, the package don't look the way I want the package to look. And because of that, I endured so much more pain and agony and choices that were made because of that, just because I chose to ignore what he was telling me to do.
Right. So at some point, like with all of that time, did you get to a point where you was just numb to it?
Oh man, did I get to a point? Yeah, I got to a point that I didn't get to that point until I found myself in a involuntarily quiet space. And that quiet space came because I ended up, I was in my position. I'm a union vice president, guys. But when I first started, I was a steward. And as a steward in my job, I was always over the office. I was getting in management's butts and all this other kind of stuff. So I was always busy. Mm-hmm. And it kept my mind off of stuff. I was always fixing somebody else's problems, trying to save people jobs and all this stuff, taking home folders and reviewing stuff. So it didn't allow me to focus on what I was numb at. That was how I was dying on the inside. It didn't focus on that. And then these people decided they want to elect me to be their vice president. That means take Tasha out of the office, put her in a regular office. Things are more quiet and more solitude. And at that point, that's what in the hell? Okay. At that point, am I about to start crying? That's crazy.
You are, but it's okay.
At that point is when things got so quiet that I realized what I was living in and how I was unhappy and how I was impacting my children and all this other stuff and how I was greater than that, it allowed me to be sick. So then I'm feeling like I'm over, like keeping my head above the water.
Right.
I'm in my office, I'm breaking down, I'm having anxiety attacks and all this stuff, you know, and then I finally got past the numb part and I got to the, okay, I'm getting there. I got mad. This is not me. This is not what I deserve. It's really time to put things in action.
Yeah. And so that quiet space was the catalyst for you to really kind of, you know, get your thoughts together and try to focus on what's the most important thing. And that's something that we all need to do. That's why I always this, you know, peace of mind over everything. When you quiet your mind, all of those emotions, they're still there, but you're able to kind of focus. And we always talk about on this show about, you know, meditation, doing something to find your happy space, just quiet and spend time. I always say, love you more. And in this case, it's love you more than all of that stuff, all of those years. You got to find the love for yourself before you can take that action to kind of do what you needed to do. Because you got, you know, like you said, you had kids. You see how they're being affected, you know, how you're being affected. And you're talking about health and you know, every day. And I always tell people kind of tongue in cheek, when you are dealing with this stuff on a daily basis and you're not making decisions, and it's not, once I'm gonna preface this with, it's not easy, because a lot of times it's a lot of gut wrenching emotional stuff. But what I always tell people is we don't live on this planet forever. And that feeling that you have, it's going to be for the rest of your life. And are you willing to feel like that for the rest of your life? And this, at some point, you got to figure it out. So.
Absolutely. So when I get to that point, got my money lined up. I actually had applied and got approved for an apartment. And then all hell broke loose, because at the same time with my son had some anger issues that stemmed from some other things that had happened in his life. And often it was me that was like saying, hey, just because you got these issues, look at me. I wasn't happy, but just because you're not happy doesn't mean that you could treat everybody else however you want to treat them either, right? Just because you having a bad day don't mean you got to explode your bad day onto everyone else. So in doing that, my ex was not of the same belief as me, because I'm going to get in your butt. I don't care how mad you are. You're not going to be up in here acting like this, and we about to get down with it. And eventually, finally, where my ex had been telling me, you don't know how to leave stuff alone. You just don't know how to leave stuff alone. The explosion happened between them finally. And then I, you know, because a situation happened, and a lot of people don't know to this day that my son ended up being in foster care for his last year of high school, because the two of them got in a fight. And now for him, he's a threat. They take him out of the house. Now the apartment is now on hold. I can't move. I got to get my child out of foster care and get my child on to college. So then mother strength kicks in and keeps me there a little while longer. Right. So after getting him off and stuff, you know, finally I made that move in 2014, April 1, you know, tell you something else. I don't care if it's the husband or if it's the wife. Don't be arguing over stuff that ain't gonna make no difference when you're gone, because what was the argument? Big house and you leave. No, you leave. You leave. No, you leave. Let me stay. I'm going to keep the house, all this other kind of stuff. You know, I told him, you leave. He said, no. I said, okay, I can leave. He said, I'm not leaving unless you leave. Cool. We both left. But when we both left, everything was put on me. Still stressed. I'm going through trying to get this house together, get tenants and all this stuff. I end up, stress kills. I end up having a minor heart attack during it. My girlfriends, they're telling me I'm up here, I'm trying to get this house together, I'm trying to do all this other kind of stuff, I'm having these chest pains and stuff, and my girls are like telling me, Tasha, you need to go to the doctor, and they had to take the keys from me to get me to go and find out that's what was going on with me. Okay, so you can't. Some stuff just is not worth it. It's not worth the pain that we put our children through. It's not worth it. The way that we tear down our bodies. And again, peace of mind, it's not worth it, right?
Right.
So I get through all of that. Got to live in a condition that wasn't a good condition for a couple of years, because in Maryland, you got to be separated 2 years before you could get into a divorce. And through this, I started seeing, I jumped out there. Oh, I do got a roof over my head. It doesn't matter that it's not the roof that I used to have. It's not the 32 square house. I got a roof over my head. I'm putting food on my table for my children. I'm maintaining them even when we're separate. And I'm like, can you help with taking the kids back and forth? And he just wasn't doing anything. But I did it. I did it all. Then I got involved. I ain't going to talk about this. So I had to do some changes and add some additional factors in my life, some income. I ain't even want to talk about that. Y'all need to call me about that part. But anyway.
Yeah, we're going to get to that at the end. We're not going to let that go. We'll get that at the end.
When it allowed me to function as a single mother by saying yes to something that most would say no to, in order to make sure that I can start giving yes to my kids that knows otherwise were coming. So after that, I realized, like I said, I got to the point. You ask me a question. If I want to tell you yes, or I want to tell you no about whatever it is, I'm not going to lie to you because I think you should know. You're going to know. So I took the position that from that point on, I'm going to, be authentically me in everything that I do. And in doing that too, I decided to, because in that marriage, this taboo, I know it is, everything that goes in your own and in your house is not for everybody else. Everything that goes on in your house is not for Facebook. But guys, there are some times that your transparency can lead to healing for some people. Absolutely. So when I learned to start opening up and saying, because I've never been ashamed of anything, but they'd be like, do you know how to keep your mouth shut about some things? Okay. My story turned me into Your Girl Tasha. My story has helped other people, and I don't regret it. That's how Your Girl Tasha was born. And I don't feel that I still keep their secrets about me that you guys don't know. But there's a lot of stuff, whatever I put out there, my thing, whatever I put out there, I own it. Own it. I'm going to own it, and I'm all right with it, because sometimes that's your therapy, to talk to people. And it's your therapy because you realize there was someone else that was out there that's going through the same thing that you're going through, and they're hurting and they were willing to talk about it. But when we take off our mask, then it heals someone else.
Yep.
I sit there. Why did I stay so long? I thought about this yesterday with the what F reason were you there? Are you staying in your marriage? Because I'm not saying that people should just walk away from their marriage. Sometimes I get people that ask me, what do I do? I can't tell you what to do with your marriage, okay? But I think when it gets to it, you have to decide when it comes to an F, are you staying because it's fixable? Or that's the first F. Are you staying because of fear? They say that I could do bad all by myself, right? And some people are fearful of doing bad by themselves. But for Your Girl Tasha, it was nothing but I could do better all by myself. And that's what the hell I've been doing. I've been doing so much better because I finally got the courage to walk out and become a woman. Because again, the lawyer told me at the beginning, the lawyer told me I was married to Peter Pan and Peter Pan never grew up. Well, in part of me trying to be respectful to my husband, I was dumbing down the energy that I had for myself in order to not make him feel some kind of way, whether it felt that way or not. If you're in a relationship and you have to dumb down yourself, it's not the right relationship for you. But hold on, let me get way before that. When we see these warning signs, and you're choosing to ignore them, at that time it means that you might just have to look at yourself. Because before you could be with anybody, before you could be a good husband or you could be a good wife, you got to know who you are. Exactly. You got to know how to love yourself. Are you loving yourself? And I think that's the biggest problem. I began to love myself in this. Yep. And from that, YGT just bam.
Just bam. That's what I say on every show. Love you more. Because if you don't, it's a recipe for disaster. And then like even for me, when I got divorced, like my marriage wasn't that long. It was only like 2 years, when I got divorced, it was only 2 years. But even the realization of it ending, it was because it was a mutual thing. It wasn't like we were scrapping and fighting and stuff like that. But we both realized who we were, and we realized that the people who we knew that we were individually, there was no way that could really like stay for the rest of our lives. Like there was no 2 years in, because it was quick, right? I met her and I was engaged in like 7 months or something like that. So I married a stranger. When we got married and we lived in the same house, it was like after a while, it was like, wait, you're like 2% of what I want. Because we were happy just having a companion and having someone there that we didn't do the work to figure out who we were with. And, just like you said, at a certain point in your life, you feel like that's the thing you're supposed to do. You're supposed to get married, by a certain age. My parents got married by a certain age. That's it. So might as well go ahead and do it. It wasn't based on I love you and we did the work and we know who each other is. You jumped in. But I don't want to say the blessing, but the blessing is we took that inventory and we was like, wait, I don't hate you, but the compatibility is like negative 2,000. And we just had to let it go. And that's real talk. Because people always talk about people get into relationships and they coast and they don't grow. It just stays flat and years go by and you're like, well, we've been together for 3 years. We might as well. Zero work. So yeah. So now the last thing I want to ask you before we start wrapping up is, so now when go ahead, you have a question?
No, I wanted to say I'm in a divorce group. And some people, everybody deals with divorce differently. And often there's a lot of the women who are in the group that are just beginning their journey of divorce. Right. And they can be fearful about, will this pain ever hurt? If you're going through pain, how am I ever going to live? How am I going to do this other kind of stuff? I don't know how to say it. Go through it. Not just feeling the pain, but go through it like you were taking a course. It might sound real crazy, go through it like you're taking a course, because if you accept it as a lesson and you allow it to change your direction and your path and guide you, navigate you out of the wilderness, because that's what it is. It's a temporary wilderness that you control getting to the end. Then you'll see that it's going to make you better and it's going to prepare you for when the right person is there with you. Lessons, me and my babe now, communication. Right. There are so many things that straight out from the start that I've put out that's important to me, and that he put out that he supported him. That guys that even now, when the little thing comes out that he put out, I don't get upset, because like he told me that day one. Get used to it. And the more you get used to it, that he told you this day one, his representative never showed up. Some of us are in relationships with people and their representatives are there and then they change. But his representative never showed up. My representative never showed up. So when I say I got to do stuff with my business, and although he's not that type of person, he's like, I'm not going to hold you back. He get on his nerves sometimes, but he accepted. So when he tells me things about him and what he has to do, when it starts to get on my nerves, I go back to checkmate. Wait a minute. He told me this. He told me this back in the end of 2014. Ain't nothing changed. Get over it. So you got to learn and take this and what did you do wrong in that previous relationship? Because it's not just understand, everybody has a part of something they did wrong in it. And that's why you didn't fit together. But the only way to make that puzzle fit together, you got to communicate and you got to accept that they were honest with you from the start. If what they say is what they're doing 5 years later, don't be getting mad because they're doing it because they told you it in the first place.
Right. And the other important thing too, my personal, like when I was officially divorced, a lot of times people, the most important thing is that when you get out of when you're divorced, or if you're getting out of a long-term relationship, it doesn't matter how short or long it is. It could be 2 years, it could be 20 years. You have to take the time to heal. If you don't do that, I didn't do that, right? Well, we sometimes get into the mode of like, even if you come out of a bad relationship, it could be bad or good. What ends up happening is you don't necessarily want to replace the bad parts of it. You want to be in a rush to replace how it felt to have somebody because now you're by yourself. So you go out and you do crazy stuff to try to fill that space in, and you haven't taken the time to be by yourself and heal. And when I got divorced, I thought, well, hey, we wasn't fighting. I'm good. But I really wasn't, because that still was 2 years out of my life where it wasn't just a boyfriend-girlfriend thing. It was an actual marriage. And so I'm out here and I bought me a new car and I'm doing all this stuff that I couldn't afford that car, but I needed to make myself feel good. So I'm at the club 3-4 nights a week. I'm doing all this drinking, doing all this stuff. And I'm like, that behavior tracks to what I went through. What the hell was I thinking? And that's why I'm telling, like, there's somebody on here need to hear this. Take time to love you, be by yourself, and figure out what your path is going to be, because that self-destructive behavior just makes you look crazy out here. I'm telling you.
I call that I think everybody goes through it, and I call it the kicking it stage. You go through the kicking it stage because you think that it's going to take away some of that pain. But when you get tired of the kicking it stage, and if you're a person that believes in God and God decides to sit your behind down, you're like, oh Lord, please forgive me for everything I did during that kicking it stage. And it didn't make you any better. All you did is prevented your healing from taking place.
Yeah. And you know what my wake-up call was? It wasn't even a decision after I was doing all that self-destructive stuff. I totaled my car, the brand new car, like 2 months after I bought it off the lot with the white stuff that you peel off, all that, total. And I was lucky to survive. And on the other side of that, I was like, what am I doing? Like, what am I doing? And it was just crazy. And so now on the other side of that, like you got to take, like Tasha said, you got to take time to look at it as a lesson and learn from it and grow in the decisions that you make after that. As far as like, if you want to pursue another relationship, you have to go into it making informed decisions. You got to, like I say on almost every show, you got to have qualifiers for people to meet before they can even get into your orbit. You got to get those questions out early. If you don't do that, then you're subject to whatever happens. And like I always tell people, it's people out here that's trained liars and a representative and all that. But if you start off with those answers, if their behavior doesn't track to what they said, then red flag. Hold on, you said you said no. This is not what you said. Early.
Run, Forrest, run.
You have the strength to leave early.
Yes.
Because you know what bad looks like. You just got out of that.
Get your Forrest Gump on.
Yep. Yep. So
You said you had one last question for me. I forgot what.
I think we did. I don't know if I have any more at this point. So okay, so let's do this. So now we're gonna wrap this up. It's kind of a question, but then we're gonna wrap this up, and then we're gonna get off the podcast portion, and then we'll still have a little more time on the back end. So once YGT was born, Your Girl Tasha was born, being authentically me, you've empowered yourself to kind of be out here as like you spend a lot of time being transparent with people to help people, but it's also therapy for yourself to be able to let it go, just like tonight, right? And now that you're on the other side of the divorce, you're seeing all of these different things happen in your life in a positive manner and all of this other kind of stuff. Do you ever get to a point, like, are you ever at a point where some days some of that old stuff kind of seeps back in and it kind of impacts how you moving, or are you past all of that?
I really feel that I'm past all of that because Rocky's barking. I'm sorry. He wants to go to the bathroom. He wants to go to the bathroom. Excuse my dog. Anywho, I don't find myself falling. Well, only when it comes to deal with co-parenting. No, I still don't. I still don't when it comes to co-parent, because you still got to interact with that person. And I have to say that luckily, because the path that I took to be able to help myself be independent, prevents me from doing what some other women, the perceived angry black woman and I'm a bust the windows out your car. I'm not that girl. I don't have to be that girl because of the choices that I decided to take. So other than like with that, sometimes I'd be like, let me flip back just for one moment and go in and get never mind. Anywho, just take one hook or something. But no, really, you get what you get. You get what you get. There has been times that I share my pain. It's okay to cry. Sometimes part of what messes us up is because we think that we have to be strong. We think we have to have that mask on. But you know what? Sometimes the strength is in being able to show somebody that you're okay with crying. That makes you strong. That's you flexing your human muscles. It's okay to be human. So no, I don't find myself being back there anymore.
So I'm gonna take one question. I have a question from Periscope. There's a lot of people that make comments, but this person actually asked a question just now. We're gonna do that, and then we're gonna wrap the podcast portion up. His name is Rob on Periscope. He says, "How have you managed not to be attracted to the same type of person as your ex was?"
Ooh. Good question, Rob.
That's why. Because, sometimes we have types and different types, and we kind of fall into.
Well, let me say this. I'm not going to say that my ex was my type.
There it is.
I'm not going to say that right now. I'm not even going to say right now what I perceived growing up, what I perceived as my type. That's not even my man that I have now.
Right.
It was funny because, again, with him, I didn't go out looking for him. He didn't go out looking for me. He was actually getting over a divorce when I met him, and it wasn't until like maybe the third or fourth time that I saw him that I noticed. I was like, okay, you know what? I think you were a little bit cute there. I wasn't even noticing that kind of stuff. So I didn't find myself back. But the first time, it wasn't that my ex was my type. And what I thought was my type, I talked to my very first love, if you want to call it, my very first love out of high school, that I was just like, the only reason why we didn't end up together was because his parents was trying to get us married and we weren't even 17 at that time. And it kind of made us break away and be friends. But even today, as we talk today, I'm like, I'm glad I ain't married his butt either, right? So for me, it wasn't a type, Rob. It wasn't a type.
Yeah, and you know, when you really evolve into who you really are and who you're in your better version of yourself, some things you thought you was attracted to don't even look good anymore.
Mm-hmm. It's so like when you go to the restaurant and that meal is on the plate and you take that first bite, you're like, who the hell cooked this? I'm sorry.
Right. So we're gonna wrap this up. I appreciate you for taking the time to be our guest tonight. And so how tell people a little bit about your show and in the health and wellness, kind of just a little blurb, and then tell people how they can contact you, and then we're gonna get out of here from the podcast portion.
Okay, guys. So you can find me on Facebook on WBGR Entertainment page. My show is Hanging with Your Girl Tasha, and it's a buffet full of different types of shows. There is not a one-trick pony. Okay, I come on Mondays at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. Look for me to be changing later on this summer to 7:30, and I hope to see some of you guys because I will be having a live audience, 25 to 50 people. I look forward to seeing some of you guys at that time to come in the studio with me. I am a wellnesspreneur as well. I do healthy supplements with a wonderful company. And if you want to know more about reaching your health goals or making some additional income, because that company, guys, is what allowed me to put money together in order for me to be this independent woman I am, that now is living in her own house. I'm not renting no more. I own my house, and he's in his mama's basement. Okay. So if you need to make some extra income, if you want to get healthier, give me a call. The number's on the screen. It's 240-545-5695, 240-545-5695. Give me a call about the business, about being on my show. If you are a woman who you're going through some things, talk to me. You can find me on Facebook as Latasha, Latasha Carpenter as well. And you can find me on YouTube under Your Girl Tasha on YouTube as well. And I think, did I hit everything you asked me to tell them?
You did. And for the podcast listeners, I'm going to have her contact information in the show notes. So when you go to the podcast, in the description, it's going to have all of her contact information. And if you are viewing this on the live stream, you can just go back and rewind and get the information from there. So we're going to wrap this part up. I thank everybody who's listening and who's viewing. I appreciate you for coming out and listening tonight. This was a very impactful show. And, you know, we do this because we want, you know, everybody's going through something. And sometimes you think you're the only one going through it. And we're not alone on this planet. So the reason why I do what I do, the reason why Tasha does what she does is to not just for ourselves, but to impact the lives of others. So I thank you. And I want you guys to enjoy the rest of your night. And once again, I appreciate you, and we will see you next week. Have a great night. All right, so we're done the podcast portion. So now we can go back. If everybody's still on here, I'm gonna go through some of these comments, and we're gonna, if you have any questions, ask them now, because we're not gonna be on here all night. But I'm gonna go back and see what I can see here. Michelle Ford said earlier her ex-husband's best friend warned me to be careful after our reception. I was outside still in my wedding dress. Wow. That's huge. But you know what happens? People that on our outside that love us, they be like, wait, something ain't right. And you be like, no, I'm in love. We're gonna still do it. And we just keep going. And not that they're always right all the time, but a lot of times the people that know you, they know something's a little off, and they can kind of see that. And yeah, that's rough, Michelle. And then Natasha Davenport from Facebook says, why not before though? I warned my friend before. She did it anyway, 4 years later, divorcing. That's all I'm saying. Like it's not funny, but a lot of this stuff, like the communication and just being able to gel, that's such an important thing that a lot of us don't realize how important it is because we just so happy to be in something. But that how you connect, how you deal with each other, how you resolve conflict. If you don't have those tools, holla at your boy. I'm a life coach.
Yes.
No, but seriously though, like it's such an important thing that I'm going to do. Like next month, I'm getting together. I'm trying to do a webinar boot camp just on communication and like solving the conflicts and stuff. Because a lot of people don't even know what to do. They stay mad and they just keep doing stupid stuff, and the other person is hurting, and now they want to hurt you back, and y'all both living in that. And it's 10 years later, and you like, the hell? And you going out every week drinking and doing whatever to try to placate, how you feel instead of resolving it. It's crazy. And then you get divorced. And now you want to, like when I got divorced, I'm like, oh God, I'm a statistic now. I'm part of that 50-something%. But it is what it is. You got to make a choice to be, to have a happier life. Because like I keep saying, for the rest of your life, like who wants to be miserable for the rest of your life? Natasha Davenport says this was his close childhood friend that I had just met a couple weeks before the wedding. They had a falling out before we got together and had reconciled a couple weeks before we got married, which is why I hadn't met him until then. Yeah, it's a lot. People, Erica Chapman says she loved your transparency, Tasha. You're helping someone. Paula says, God has you, Tasha. YGT is a gem. That house was not worth your peace.
No, it wasn't.
Let me tell you, when I got divorced, it was like all the furniture and stuff. I was like, please, we're not fighting. Just take it. I had to start from scratch, like with like nothing. But I had peace of mind though.
Well, that's the thing with that, keeping the house, because I didn't want to go through foreclosure and all this other kind of stuff, because the real estate boom, the house was upside down. We wasn't going to make the money back, and all this other kind of stuff. So I dealt with being a landlord in the house for like 3 years, and the tax benefits was awesome. But,
right.
After a while, everything was still falling on me. And it was like, okay, the kids got to tie me to you, but this daggone house don't got to tie me to you. And to the point that when we sold the house, we went to the table and gave the other people money to take it.
Right.
That was the whole thing. It's like, just get it. I don't care what. We need to put $6,000 to it so you could get this house, huh? Just take it.
Right.
And that was another shift of a peace of mind for me. And that was just summer before last, getting rid of the marital house, But sometimes you just got to let stuff go. It's not worth trying to hold on to stuff when you're losing yourself in the process.
Yep. That's key. Erica Chapman Anderson says your transparency can lead to healing. And they was talking about what I said about my when I was married and finding out that 2% of the compatibility just wasn't there. People don't even really think about that. I did a whole show on being compatible versus being in love. Sometimes it's two different things. Andre Johnson, the best thing in the world. Don't stay for the kids. Co-parent. Yep.
I'm not. I can't even co-parent.
Right. Michelle Ford says communicate and make the effort to actually understand what is being communicated to you. And Paula says, I definitely identify with this part. I think we have all been there at some point. When Anthony and I separated, I think I lost my mind for a little while. Yeah, it happens to the best of us. The key is to know that there's a path back. There's a path to redemption. You just have to be willing to do the work to get there. It's not easy. Michelle Ford says it was easy for me. Never had a crazy person before my ex-husband. Haven't had one after, and he was the opposite of my type. Go figure. Alicia says, excellent show. Thank you for sharing your story, Tasha. I know you have helped so many.
Thanks, Alicia. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for what you do by sharing and allowing your other half. I'm not going to say your better half, your other half, to help and impact so many people too. You a gem too.
And she also says, I love the tea and the coffee. We both do.
Look, I am drinking a coffee right now, guys. I
So
told
if you're still listening, the contact Tasha. She has a health and wellness company. That coffee packet that she's holding up, that thing gives me energy every day. And I don't even, I'm not even a coffee drinker like that, right? But this thing gave me energy every day. And when I looked at the package, I expect, and I know we're talking about your company now, but when I took it, I thought that energy burst that I got was caffeine. And then I looked at the package and it wasn't. It's all natural stuff in it. So anyway, y'all hit her up.
And it's not just coffee I got everything, guys.
Yeah, everything. Look behind her. Look at all that stuff. Holler at her. Ask her all the questions you need. She got your back. Andre says, bye, Tasha. Love you.
Love you too.
Rob says, I let her have whatever she wanted and I walked away without strings attached. Best thing ever.
All right, Rob. I know
so anyway, we gonna get out of here. Alicia says we need to put a coffee station in the kitchen now because we making so much coffee. So anyway, thank you guys for coming. I appreciate you. Thank you, Tasha, for staying because I know we're over an hour now. But thank you so much for sharing your story and all of that good stuff. We are going to we'll probably have you back, or I'll be on your show or something. We always help each other out, and that's a lesson for all of you guys. Collaborate with each other, make new friends. I know that's a hard thing to do now. When you get in a certain, it's hard to make new friends. But it's people out here that's worth your time, worth your energy. We running businesses, and we looking at each other on the street like, why they saying good morning? Like, come on, man. Like, right. we gotta get it together. That's the only way that we're gonna survive is if we help each other. So find a new friend, figure it out, work together, and let's get it. It's 2020. It's only February, where it's almost March. You still, whatever your goals are, you still got time to do it. So we're going to get out of here. Thank you again, and we'll see you next week. Have a great evening.
Good night, guys.